which is more dangerous, when political parties agree on the national interest, or when they compete to advance their own definition of it?
Well, at the moment we've got competing interests on national interest when we relate to the European Union in Britain, where both Labour argue that it's in the national interest to stay within the European Union and to make it work better for us, and the Conservatives argue that it's in our national interest to renegotiate and then have a referendum. And so you do have a competition here, which is good for debate. It's good for debate, but it may produce very bad results over time during a period of renegotiation. I think that during an actual war, when you're fighting, then the consensus above party is very important. And of course, this is a very strong feature of British political parties, that foreign policy in some way is above party interest. It is securitised, and there is a national interest rather than a conservative party policy on foreign policy or a Labour one. So in time of crisis, I think consensus is helpful, but when there isn't a crisis, then this debate is very useful.
How has the emergence of extra-national organizations such as NATO and more recently the EU changed the definition of national interest?
NATO and the EU are very different because NATO is an alliance, and so it has a project, it has the NATO treaty, it has Article 5 in particular, it has mutual guarantees, and there isn't the need to swear allegiance of any sort to the alliance. There are obligations to have military expenditure and to come to each other's defence if a country is attacked. So that's rather different from the European Union, whereby we say that there are certain institutions to which we will give a little part of our own sovereignty, and we will accept majority voting on certain issues that will affect the way we work as a country. And so I think that you could argue that the national dimension within the European Union has remained pretty strong. Indeed, Alan Millward, who was one of the first historians of the European Union, argued that in fact it was the European Union, or community as it then was, that actually enhanced national interests and saved the nation state because it found a new playing field in which it could operate.
And how can transparency relate to national interest? Can increased transparency change the definition of national interest?
Well, we haven't got much increased transparency at the moment, as we've been talking about in the seminar, and the governments have been very unhappy about the leaks. First, the WikiLeaks affair, and then the Edward Snowden affair, which has made governments, particularly the UK government, very jumpy and nervous about the implications of what's going on here. So they have been worried about transparency. I think that one must feel anxious if people's lives are being put unwittingly at risk by the release of information. On the other hand, it is a democracy. We live in a democracy, and therefore we must expect that we are told as much as we can be about what governments are doing. Because if you lose the trust between a people and a government, instead of having a government of the people, you will have a government over the people, and that is the short road to disaster. Okay?
Okay, thank you so much.